Look, the biggest podcast where you can learn them lessons. Line for line where you can learn from different sections. Made it out the mud, come tell your story, blessings. Never know who listening, never know who stressing. Devon gave you a voice, come speak your honest truth. Line for line, go bar for bar, it's up to you. Wanna talk sports, gov, and politics? Wanna talk about where you from and your accomplishments? Then Line for Line is really where you need to be. A platform that's really made for folks like you and me. You can find it all no matter what you seek. Whether you calling or you listening, tune in every week.
All right, and just like that, we're back in another special episode of Line for Line podcast. We have a very legendary young man in the building as well today, a very accomplished young man from the side of basketball. If you know basketball, there's no way you don't know this young man here. I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Rudy Collum, and people in the basketball circle just refer to me as Coach Rudy, and that's because I'm old.
You're too funny. So obviously we'll start off with the most cliche question ever. Basketball. How did you get involved with the game of basketball?
Well, I got involved with basketball in a very unusual way. As a youngster growing up in Chicago, we played all kinds of sports, and I was pretty athletic, and so right around 10 years old, I started getting involved with basketball at the Park District where we lived. We lived in an area called Fuller Park, and it was like mid-south side of Chicago. And the coaches were very, very good coaches. As a matter of fact, one of the coaches is just globally renowned, and that guy's name is Jesse White.
Jesse White?
And Jesse White. And Jesse White, was our gymnastics coach.
Okay.
We did everything. We did gymnastics. We did track and field. We did, football. I mean, you name it. Swimming.
Oh wow.
Oh yes. I mean, we did the real rounded way of sports. We did everything. Jesse White is still around today. He's the Secretary of State of the state of Illinois. So, but Jesse White has a world-renowned group called Jesse White Tumblers. That's the tumbling group.
They're always in the parades and everything like that. Yeah.
The different countries. So he was one of our first coaches. He and a guy named Al Pritchard. Al Pritchard was a track runner. He ran with Ralph Metcalf. So, we had world-renowned coaches that we didn't realize at the time. Okay, now that you look back on those days and you realize that, wow, we had guys that had trained with, Jesse Owens. We had Ernie Banks would come and give us hitting, tips for baseball, and so we had a real serious group of coaching staffs that worked with the youngsters. So when I turned 12. An unfortunate thing happened to me, and that was my father passed away.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
So, I was looking for something to occupy my time, and, I started picking up basketball, and the coaches were almost like, my fathers now. And so they told me that I could be pretty good, and if I would do exactly what they told me, which I did. And matter of fact, I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and so my brother that's 4 years older than me, he was quicker than me, but, the coach said, your brother doesn't listen like you do. So he said, if you continue to listen, you're going to get better and better. So that's really how I got involved with basketball. I took a liking to it. I was pretty good at it, and I didn't grow much. Height was not one of the things in our family. My dad wasn't real tall. He was about 5'8", 5'9". So I just gravitated to basketball because I liked every aspect of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the coaches, like I said, they were like, having 2 or 3 dads, that was surrounding you with just great advice.
Yes, sir. How important would you say it is to build the connection with your coaches, and from a coach's perspective, with your athletes as well, too, because a lot of times we don't know what the kids have going on at home. A lot of kids don't have dads, and figures to lead them in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean that was the case with me. My dad passed away. I was 12. Okay, and my brothers, they were older than me, and but big brothers sometimes, don't treat you like your dad would. Big brothers like to boss you. So, so and these coaches that I had, I just, I gravitated to them. I mean, they had the patience. They were instructional. They said that, that's okay. You're going to make mistakes. They didn't get upset because they knew that you had that gleam in your eye that you really wanted to, be as good as you can be. And so today, I mean, that's a huge thing. Coaches don't realize it, but they might be the only male figure in a player's life. I mean, I've coached high school ball. I've coached at the University of Wisconsin Parkside. I've coached nationally with travel teams. I've coached internationally, and many of those players didn't have a dad at home. So I was, without knowing, I was their dad in many respects. And, some of the players came up to me and told me. Yeah. And they said, hey, you're more like a dad than a coach. And I said, is that good or bad?
The power of sports, though.
Yeah, but that's the reality of it. When I was coaching at the university level, we had 13 guys on the team. 11 of them did not have a dad at home.
Oh, my gosh.
So
11 out of 13.
11 out of 13. So me and the other coach, Steve Stevens, we were their dads, and it's like, it's not that we wanted necessarily to be their dads, but it just, sometimes people say that's how the cookie crumbles. Well, that's just kind of how it fell apart there, is that we were the father figures to a lot of players. And those players today, they still come around. I mean, it's been a lot of years.
Yeah. Now, how is it that you gauge if they have a dad at home or not? Because a lot of kids or people like that, they're a little bit closed off, because they're already used to going home to a deficit like that and not having. So they're not really adamant about telling people like, oh, I don't have a dad at home or anything like that. How is it that you gauge that and understand how to better take care of these young men? Well,
one of the things that we in recruiting players, you want to talk to the families. So you ask them, what's your mom's name, your dad's name, and you want to know more about the families, so that way you can get a feel for, what kind of family structure they come out of, family life that they've been involved with, and so in some of those ways, you find out that there is no dad maybe in the home. So, we didn't come out and ask him, do you have a dad at home? We just in our normal way of doing business, in the basketball program, we got to ask those things. How many sisters and brothers do you have? And, are your grandparents involved? Do they come to the games? So I don't want to say casual conversation, but business conversation. We need to get some idea of the background they come from, because that's important to know more about them and build that relationship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, did you go on to have children of your own, Coach?
Oh, I got 7.
Yeah, 7 kids. Okay.
I got 7. 5 boys and 2 girls.
Did any of them play sports as well?
All 7.
Now, tell us a little bit about what that was like, being father and coach. And these are your actual offspring as well, too, as opposed to just a player on your team.
Yeah, that was a real challenging situation.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Because a lot of times, I've told people, when you coach your own kids, you walk a real fine line. You cannot be too tough on them, and you also cannot be too lenient with them. So how do you gauge it? Well, that's a real fine line. And, we had some challenging moments from time to time, because instead of them looking at me as coach, they were looking at me as dad. So instead of saying, oh, coach, they would say, oh, dad. And I said, hey, when we're on the basketball court, it's coach, okay? And, it's not that I didn't want them to call me dad. It's just that, sometimes other players are looking to see how are you going to treat your son compared to how you're going to treat me. And I've told everyone that I'm going to treat all of you the same. And I've told my kids that. I've told all 7, I'm going to treat you the same. And people have said, well, how can you treat them the same? I said, the same in terms of fairness. I'm going to treat you fairly. Now, what's fair for one, that same fairness may not be the same for somebody else. Okay, so you got to take into consideration the situation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, everything is situational.
Did you ever find yourself having to maybe pull your kid out of the game or maybe bench them or anything like that? And if so, how'd you handle a situation like that?
Oh, okay. I just said, you know what? I sent a sub for one of my sons one time. I was yelling instructions to him, and he, some kind of way, threw his hand back at me like,
no way. Are you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Just funny the way you said.
I laughed. I'm saying to myself, are you kidding? You gonna wave me off? Okay, you come sit down next to me then.
No way.
So the sub went in for him, and he comes out. He sits down. He says, well, why'd you take me out? I said, you figure it out.
Really? Oh, no.
You figure out what you did for me to take you out of the game.
Oh my God. How is it that you just keep your composure when, obviously you got to know that's still a kid, but how is it that you keep your composure knowing that you pulled him out even though he may have not liked it?
Well, I mean, and when you coach and you tell players, when coaches, whether it's me or somebody else giving you instructions, you want to nod, you want to throw your finger up and say, gotcha, coach. But if you throw your hand back and wave it off, you're saying you're bigger than the team, you're bigger than the coach, so maybe it's time for you to take a seat.
Yeah.
And so, we explain that to the players. I explain that to my kids. I've told them I'm going to do my best not to embarrass you, your team, and the situation, and I'm going to expect you to do the same. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I'm not going to treat you one way and treat somebody else a different way. I'm going to pretty much attempt to treat everybody the same. So if Joe Brown threw his hand back at me, guess what? Joe's coming out the game too. Okay? Those are things you just do not do. I don't care if you my son or you on the team. Mm-hmm. You don't do that to your coaching staff.
Exactly.
Do you do that to your parents? Because if you did, you might be missing a finger. So it's a real delicate, fine line of respect. Mm-hmm. And when you cross it, there are consequences.
Exactly. At what point would you say you knew you were just primed to coach and lead the next generation of athletes with you being a stellar athlete yourself?
Well, I always wanted to coach. And with all due respect to all the coaches I had, they weren't always the best coaches.
Oh, really?
And I kept saying to myself in my head, I can do better than this.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I mean, we had some coaches, and one coach pretty much told us, he said, I'm not a real good basketball coach, and I appreciate you guys, putting up with me, and I appreciated that.
He told you that?
He told us that.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and that team went 19-3. Okay, and it was largely because he knew he was not a real good basketball coach. He was a football coach. Mm-hmm. Okay, but nobody wanted to take the team because the other coach had transferred to a different school, and so we had a pretty good team. We had good size. I was the point guard, and we had pretty good chemistry. He recognized that. He recognized we had good chemistry, and he kind of removed himself from over coaching. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of left a lot of decision making up to us, which, we appreciated that. And actually, it was about 10 years ago that we had a reunion with that coach.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he said he was going to be in town, and guys called me, and I went down, and we met with him, and and everybody was happy to see him. He was happy to see us, and it worked out just fine. But I've always had the notion to coach. I felt that was part of my calling. It was to coach basketball. I've coached football. I've coached some track. So I mean, it was part of my, desire to help, to give back, to train. And that's, I majored in history and education in college. So as I wanted to be like the people that had taught me, the people that had coached me, I had a role model. I had a lot of role models. In addition to Jesse White and Al Pritchard and these guys, they were terrific. And they had gone off and come back to the community and, done all kinds of things with the young, up and coming athletes, the ones that listen. Now, not everybody listen. So it's not so unusual today if young athletes don't listen. That's just young athletes. Some just think they're better than what they are and bigger than what they are. And sometimes they got to be humbled.
Well, I'm glad you said humble. I literally was just about to ask that. What is the most humbling thing for a person like that who does think that they're bigger than the team and that they're just God's gift to earth?
Well, the most humbling thing that probably is they play their best and still lose. That's humbling. Okay, I was watching the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies game last night, and Minnesota was up by 20 going into the fourth quarter, and Memphis won the game and eliminated them because Memphis had this passion that they weren't going to be denied, and Minnesota didn't play much defense, and Memphis scored 40 points in the fourth quarter.
Oh, wow.
And beat them, and it was like, you got to be kidding me. Okay, so you talk about a humbling experience. You're up 20 going into the fourth quarter on your home court, and you just came out and didn't put forth the effort that got you the 20-point lead. Maybe you thought the game was over.
You got comfortable.
The game is never over until the horn sounds. They used to say some other things, but I'm not going to say those things anymore. Yeah, people would be very upset with you on your podcast. So.
Yes. Now, how is it that you go about dealing with an athlete like that who feels like they may be bigger than the actual team as well? How is it that you set them down?
Well, I just ask them, what are your goals? What do you want to do? What can you contribute to what we're doing? Okay. What's the one thing that you do best? I ask that question a lot. That's a very humbling question because now, the players got to give you one thing. One guy said, I can do it all. I said, I really didn't ask you if you can do it all. I asked you, what's the one thing you do best of all the things that you do? You only got one. So now we're going to see if he's going to be honest. He or she. I've coached women, I've coached girls' teams. I just want to know, how do you see yourself? What is the one thing that you do best? When they tell me, I said, now how can that one thing that you do best help this team be successful? I didn't say win, okay? Because success is not always winning. Success has a lot to do with getting better, okay? And sometimes those people have a real difficult time kind of grasping with that because really nobody's ever asked them.
Very true. Very true. Now let's just speak a little bit about your body of work, sir. I'm pretty sure with you being the stellar coach that you've been, you've produced athletes to go all over the world when it comes to the game of basketball. Can we just speak a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. We can talk about that. I'm not sitting here putting out, all kinds of All-Americans and stuff like that. We basically look at their fundamentals. Everybody's got talent. Okay, everybody has a grasp of how to play basketball. Those that play it. So it's not that I'm going to teach you anything unique about how to play. You know how to play. But sometimes you don't know how to win.
Oh, I like how you said that.
Okay. Now, if you come out of a winning program, you obviously have contributed something to that program for that program to be a winning program. And it's not always points. I don't always recruit players that score. On a real good team, you need basically 3 scorers on that team. Okay? You need a guard that can score, you need a forward that can score, and you need a big man that can score. Now, that big man might be the other forward. So we just look at where their skill level is and how we can improve the skill level so they can contribute more. Maybe they have some, untapped skill levels. Some people think they're great shooters when they're better rebounders. Some people think they're, great ball handlers when they're better at defending. Mm-hmm. So we do a give and take. We have a lot of dialogue, and we also have a lot of tough sessions, tough, honest sessions in terms of this is where we need to get you, okay? And then players ask questions. Well, Coach, why aren't I getting 20 shots a game? Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the last 20 shots you took. How many did you make? So, not to embarrass anybody, but it's like, okay, we got to be honest, okay? So if you tell me you are an excellent three-point scorer, notice I said scorer, not shooter. Anybody can shoot a three. Can you make it? So, it's gut check time. It's reality check time. It's sit down and take a look at, okay, let's see where you are. Let's see where we can get you, to move to. And let's see how we can get you to blend in with the other players on the team so that way we can, be successful. Yeah, win some games. Mm-hmm. Yeah, win some championships. Because if you're a young kid, middle school, or even elementary, let's say fifth grade up through high school, you're a young kid, okay? We got to make sure that you not only learn the fundamentals, you get better with the fundamentals, but by the time you're a senior in high school, you've mastered the fundamentals. Once you've mastered the fundamentals, my philosophy and my coaching style is that once you master these types of things, there is nothing that you cannot do on that basketball court that, you will do those things better than everybody else. Okay, and that's basically what I've told my sons and my daughters. How good do you want to be? It's going to be based on how well you learn the fundamentals and master the fundamentals. You're not blessed with height. So you got to be better. You got to be twice as good, sometimes 3 times as good as everybody else, because that was the same philosophy that I had. I wasn't blessed with height. Some people say, well, you had tall relatives in your family? Yeah. But I drank coffee with my dad, so I blame it on coffee. Coffee stunted my growth. Okay. Got to blame it on something, right? Yeah. So that's kind of my philosophy and my expectation. When players come to me and they tell me they want to be really, really good, I just ask them how much are you willing to really, really work to be good? Mm-hmm. If you don't want to work at it, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. It's going to take more time. Mm-hmm. So that's once we get them to that point where they're willing to. I don't like to use the word buy into. Sometimes people say you got to buy into the program. No, you got to be honest with yourself. Okay. So once you come to the realization, this is what I need to do in order to get from point A to point D. I got to make a commitment. You're not making a commitment to me. You're making a commitment to yourself. And you make that commitment to yourself, you got to stick with it. There are going to be all kinds of distractions. There are going to be all kinds of people telling you how great you are. You're not even all neighborhood yet, and they're telling you you're great. Okay,
all neighborhood.
Yeah, you got to be. You first got to be all neighborhood. So what is all neighborhood? You're the best in that neighborhood. Okay, and everybody knows it. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's almost like that commercial that Charles Barkley does. They would line up picking sides, and the little girl says, "I'll take Barkley." Okay, that's what we're talking about. Okay, that was one of my first goals. I want to be better than everybody in my neighborhood. And my neighborhood in Chicago is pretty good size. Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of the things that I learned from my dad, and my dad wanted me to be a baseball player. because he played baseball. Back in the time when my father was coming through, he played in the old Negro Baseball League.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so he was a left-handed batter and a right-handed thrower. I'm a left-handed batter and a right-handed thrower. So I kind of got those genes, okay? Of the four boys, I'm the only one that bats lefty.
Oh, wow.
So he kind of wanted me to do that. I wasn't really super interested in baseball once I got, my taste of basketball. And so he once said something to me that I always remembered. He said, look, if you cannot be the best, be among the best. If you're not going to be number one, if you cannot be number one, in your area, if you cannot be number one, be in the top 5. Okay? So that stuck with me. You're not always going to be the best, but be among the best. Okay? You're not always going to be the number one. But if you're in the top 5, top 10, oh yeah. Okay, those are some things that stuck with me, and so I attempt to pass them on. I pass them on to my kids. I pass them on to other people's kids, and it's good philosophy. It's good life learning advice. I mean, you can be on a job. Okay, I mean, I've had all kinds of jobs, and they weren't glamorous jobs. They were jobs. They produced money.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to work on a truck line. Okay, loading trucks. So I took the attitude, I'm going to be one of the best loaders on the dock. Okay, I'm going to be one of the best. You always have somebody better than you because they've been there longer than you. So. But again, that's philosophy. Mm-hmm. If you're not the best, be among the best. Okay, so that's what I've passed down to a lot of players. Quite a few of them have done extremely well. And I'm sure they can attribute that to some of the teachings and some of the philosophical discussions that we've had about how to get there.
Yes, sir. Now, as we get ready to close out an amazing episode, what would you say is the mark that you hope to leave behind and impact people when it comes to the game of basketball?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is you got to put team first, okay, and respect yourself, respect your coaches, respect your teammates, and above all else, respect the opposition. Sometimes people don't respect the opposition. Hey, some of the opposition, some of the, your opponents, some of them are better than you, but if you respect that and you can work well with your teammates and your coaches, you can overcome teams that are better than your teams. You can outlast them, you can out-hustle them, you can out-scrap them, but you got to be willing to learn. You got to be patient. You got to respect everything and everybody, and you got to have a respect for the game of basketball. I mean, think how many things have happened for all these players that played this little simple game of basketball. Okay, put the ball in the basket on that end and keep the ball from going in on the basket on the other end. It's not real difficult, situation there. But you got to respect it, you got to appreciate it, and you need to give back to it. What can you give back to it? A lot of people are getting something from it, but you have an obligation to give something back. And I'm not saying it got to be money, it's got to be things. It just might be showing up and say, hey, how you doing? Okay, maybe just encouraging the next generation. Tell them the same things that were told to you to get you where you got to. And if people can do that and appreciate the game and appreciate all the things that people have done for them, that's going to be terrific. All I want people to remember me by is that I attempted to treat them just like, people treated me. They treated me with respect. They taught me. They helped me. And they also had a high expectation of me. And sometimes people don't have that high expectation of themselves. Mm-hmm. Okay? I mean, hey, God bless you with the talent, with the knowledge, with the opportunity. use it to the best of that ability and thank God for it.
That being said, young man, we just wrapped up an amazing episode of Line for Line. We appreciate you for having some time for us, sir.
Thank you very much.
You calling or you listening, tune in every week. Line for line. Oh yeah, I'm going line for line.